You're listening to What About Me, where I, along with my guests, take a deep dive into those personal struggles and the internal dialogue that is stopping you from doing the very thing that would cause you to have even more success, more money, more relationship, and more abundance in your life. I'm Keisha Dixon, the Tapping Queen, transformational wealth coach and creator of the Monetize Your Mind Success System, as well as the Visibility Vixen Success System. Today's show is being sponsored by Transformed Credit. If you're in need of rapid credit repair with no auto enrollment or monthly fees, you only pay as we delete. Text 44222 and type in the words Transformed Credit. Again, you're listening to What About Me, and I'm Keisha Dixon, and I have an awesome recurring guest on the show today. Her name is Dr. Dravon James, and Dr. Dravon James is the founder of Everyday Peace with Dr. Dravon James. Dr. Dravon's goal with Everyday Peace is to educate, empower, and inspire others to build the life of their dreams. As an author, keynote speaker, and radio show host, Dr. Dravon teaches others how to utilize everything that shows up in their lives, the good, the bad, and everything in between, as stepping stones on the path to building the life of their dreams. And today, Dr. Dravon and I are going to discuss part 2 of The Brilliant Life. Welcome back, Dr. Dravon.
Well, I'm super excited to be back. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you. You know, we had talked about for part 2 of the Brilliant Life series, we were going to talk about a subject that's near and dear to our hearts, and that is relationships. Relationships. How to get from where you are right now to where you want to be, and what information is being presented to you where you are right now.
Yeah. And if we think about it, relationships are the cornerstone of everything we do, right?
Absolutely.
Everything requires that we go in and out of relationships with somebody at all day long, all throughout every experience. I mean, I don't know anybody who has a life void of relationships. So it is really important that we learn how to navigate relationships successfully to have a brilliant life.
Absolutely. And you had mentioned we're always in relationship with somebody, and I want to add or something, right? We can be in a relationship with our health, a relationship with our money, relationship with our job.
Yeah. And I love it. Somebody or something, always. And so it behooves us to know how to navigate those waters, because they can be kind of choppy waters. They go through the whole emotional realm, just like everything else. And they change and evolve just like we change and evolve. I think the problem happens, however, is when we want to force a relationship to remain the same. When we're not the same, life is dynamic, it's energy, and it's constantly moving. So we get in those places where we want everything to remain the same, and it's not remaining the same, and we're trying to, we're trying to keep it the same, not realizing that the situation that arises that seems painful has arisen because it is time to make a change. And that change doesn't always mean, that the relationship is over, whatever. And we're not just talking about romantic relationships. We're talking about relationships with anything or anybody, right? They're constantly changing. And we constantly have to reevaluate our position in relation to whatever the situation is, be it another person or be it a circumstance. Take a job situation forever. I know people who've been on the same job 35, 40 years. And that's wonderful, right? But I know people who get on a job and they can't stay more than 2 or 3 years, right? They get that itch and they want to go somewhere else.
Right.
And I think either way is great. You have to follow what's good for you, what is good for you in that relationship. But understanding yourself. There are people who sit in a situation 35, 40 years, and for 20 of it, they're miserable.
Right.
Miserable.
Absolutely. And on the other side of that, you had said that we change, but we want the relationship to remain the same. Sometimes relationships change and we've remained the same, and we're looking around like, well, what just happened here? How did it happen? And when you had mentioned the job, and some people stay for 30 or 40 years, you see that come up a lot because the business world moves, and it moves quickly, more quickly than ever before. And you can find yourself sitting there a little stagnant, a little stuck, and looking up, and all of a sudden you can't keep up. And you're wondering, well, what just happened? Management has changed. The company has changed. Yes, maybe. And you haven't.
Right. And the thing is, what I would say too is we're all changing. It's just we don't realize the changes that we're going through. And because we're not the same people that we were 10 years ago.
We're entirely new, different people, brand new every 7 years.
Every how many years?
7 years. Every 7 years, we are completely regenerated.
Isn't that amazing?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that amazing? So it's no wonder that our relationships are going through change. And then we talk about for women, there's so much change. I mean, I think the beautiful thing about being a woman is that nature allows us to stay in constant flow with change, because there's so many physiological things that happen with change. Those of us who are raising families know that the children growing and leaving home and that empty nesting, all part of change. It's like constantly nature is asking us to get into the rhythm of change so that we're not fighting against it, but we're flowing with it. And things are just happening that, either you're going to be part of the change or the change is going to barrel you over, right? And so if you just know, what do we need to do? And one of the things we need to do is to be able to look at things from other people's perspectives.
Right.
Really be able to really understand our own perspective, because a lot of times we don't take time to do that either.
Right.
I probably got a piece of hair in my mouth.
That's okay.
Like, what is it?
Live.
I know, live. I'm like, what is going on? I apologize. I'm like, what is going on? But yeah, so understand our own perspective, right? Understand that constantly staying aware of ourselves is important. But we get so used to being robotic in our nature. And even though our activities may be robotic, our internal side, I can guarantee you, the way we're looking at things, if we really slow down and paid attention, they're changing. Our perspective is changing. It's evolving. We're learning new things. We have to be aware of our own perspective and be aware of other people's perspectives. Start noticing little difference. I know that I went to a talk one year, several years ago, and the lady gave this example. If Friday night date, you and your significant other, is always movies and dinner. And they started out these dynamic movies and dinners. You're excited, you have a lot of conversation, and they get quieter as the years go on.
Right.
Not that they become less important, they're still important to you, but they just get quieter. Right? And some parts of that is good, because we're settling into each other, we're getting to know each other better. But other parts you may want to check in and see, is someone getting disengaged in this process? Is it time to evaluate what we're doing here and consider spicing our life up, doing something different? Not that there's anything wrong with this, but respecting the process of change. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting because we don't often pause to take the space to examine why is this feeling so changed, so different from where it was before. And sometimes it happens so gradually, we don't even notice it until it becomes uncomfortable, until it becomes so unbearable. It feels like it's a pressure pot, or you start saying things like, oh, I'm just so miserable, I cannot stand this, right? And that's when we start to notice it. And by that point, if we haven't taken time to pause and stop and reflect and see what is it about me that I am attracting this relationship, right? What is this relationship? What part do I play in this relationship, and what is happening here? When we don't do that, we find ourselves in a very reactive state often.
Yeah, quite often. It's so interesting. I think about the self-love explosion tour, because I'm saying to myself, as I'm listening to you talk, all this has to go with us being aware of ourselves. The more in tune we stay with self,
yes,
the more likely we are to have relationships that are validating, one to another, backwards and forwards, that they're validating and that are encouraging to the changes that are going on in our life. But if we're not even in tune with what's going on with us,
right?
How are we going to stay on top of maintaining a relationship? So we're talking about having a brilliant life, and making transitions in our relationships.
Absolutely. And when we're not in tune with what's going on with us, what we're actually doing, rather than in practicing intentionality, is we're practicing sameness. We are practicing sameness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We really are.
Yeah. And in order, when we first started the show, we talked about how do you move from where you are in your relationship to where you want to be. You have to disrupt that pattern of practicing the sameness, whatever the sameness is for you.
So you got to become comfortable with change, right? And that is the one thing. We don't want that C word. We don't want change, right? But we have got to become comfortable with change, embracing change, looking for ways to create change in our life, right? Because the only stable thing that's in our life is change. The only constant thing is that there will be change, right? Find new ways to love and excite ourselves, right? Which in turn opens up new ways for us to express love and excitement. And it draws more things in for us to be loving and exciting about. Doesn't mean you got to throw out your old relationship. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. Doesn't mean that you necessarily have to. But when you're exploring change, it keeps the spice in life. It really does. It really does. I think we have to resist the temptation for sameness.
Absolutely. And part of what I like to do when I notice that a relationship isn't showing up the way I expected it to, I take a step back, almost as if I were outside of myself, and examine, okay, what is this sameness? What am I practicing here in this sameness? And usually, I would say 90% of the time for me, what I'm practicing is something that I've practiced for, I'm 51 now, for at least 48 years. And that is, I practice sacrifice. Practice sacrifice. I practice, I'm catching myself practicing the energy of sacrifice, the energy of making myself smaller somehow to appease others and make other people feel comfortable. I'm practicing putting my needs last, not even last, but dead last, right? And sometimes it's subtle and sometimes it's not so subtle, but when I stop and observe it and then intentionally break that pattern of practicing sacrifice, that's when all of a sudden things start changing, things start manifesting in my life. I start magnetizing better relationships, more money, better health, more joy, and more peace in my life.
Yeah, I like the fact that you bring up that issue of sacrifice, because so often we believe that a sacrificial life is a happy life. And I'm by no means saying, oh, we're not meant to give and to serve, because we are meant to give and serve, but we're meant to give and serve from our overflow.
From our overflow, yes.
You can't give from an empty vessel. So we first have to fill ourselves up with whatever this goodness is, whatever it is, whether it's relaxation, whether it's knowledge, whether it's patience, whether it's love. We've got to fill that cup up, and we give from the overflow of that. So you're right. When you get in that place of sacrifice, being sacrificial to the point where you're becoming bitter and rigid.
Yes. Bitter, rigid, stuck.
Yeah, you get stuck, right? Yeah. Absolutely. And I always like to also examine my beliefs to make sure my beliefs we have some foundational beliefs. We do. But I always go back to, if we held on to the foundational belief that man could never fly, we would not have airplanes.
That's right.
So we've got to be open. I think in order to have a brilliant life, a brilliant relationship, we've got to be open to new ideas and new concepts. Absolutely. It's okay to have some foundational beliefs, but let's be expansive and open so that we can look at things differently and explore new uncharted territories. And I know for myself, that's been very important.
Yeah. When I talk about practicing sacrifice, I just started to giggle, because I wouldn't be here where I am right now as a self-employed transformational wealth coach, living in Florida rather than working in the corporate job in New York City. I wouldn't be here at all if it hadn't been for a truly uncomfortable, infuriating situation that caused a tremendous amount of resentment in myself. And it was the result of a relationship, not even the relationship with a significant other, but it all It all started, and I say started loosely because it really was just the straw that broke the camel's back. This was a pattern that kept repeating itself, but the way it repeated itself in this case was I had a former business partner, and I would also a coach, and I would provide all of the content, and this person was the front person for the content. And I was also the one funding this operation. And things went south, and they went south pretty quickly. And so we had a JV agreement, a partnership agreement that wasn't honored. And I was just like infuriated, like, what's going on? What's happening? But and it was wreaking havoc, not just in this partnership and not just in this particular business, but everywhere. It was wreaking havoc in my financial life. It was wreaking havoc in my relationships with my kids because I was so cranky and I was just so upset and angry. Like the resentment seeped, coursed through me. And it was as a result of that I started seeking help because my finances were crazy. They were crazy. So I went to a wealth therapist, and she's the person who introduced me really to money mindset and also to EFT and tapping. And so it was from that thing that that seemed so bad in my life when I was willing to see, okay, something's going on here that's beyond this partnership. What role am I playing in this? Let me go get help for the role that I'm playing in this, because even with the partnership being dissolved, it was such a goal trauma. Nothing was the same sense. Like it had this ricochet, rolling effect, right? Like an avalanche where everything was falling apart. And then I was able to take ownership. Okay, you were practicing sacrifice. You were providing all the funding and not really staying on top of that, not asking, for 50%, 50%, 50%. You were providing 100% of the material and sitting back in the background and never taking credit or getting credit for that. And I was an active participant in that relationship.
Yeah.
I chose to make myself smaller to appease everyone around me. I chose to be invisible, right? And it had this ricochet domino effect through every aspect of my life. And it was when I was able to unpack that, practicing sacrifice, I realized this is something I've been doing for 48 years. Or at the time, 46 years. This is something that is such a pattern, and it feels so natural that when I do embody my power and embody who I am and step up in my brilliance, allowing everyone else around me to be brilliant too, it feels unnatural. It actually feels like withdrawal because I was so addicted to the art of practicing sacrifice. So whenever I see anything, anything going even slightly like, ooh, what's happening? Why isn't my calendar filled up? I look, because now I'm so practiced at intentionality. Now I look, okay, where are you practicing sacrifice? Where? And I discovered an area maybe 2 weeks ago where and this seems so innocent and so simple, but when it comes to alignment, you really have to be very, very conscious and very aware of what you're allowing yourself to practice, because what you practice, you get really, really good at, right? Yeah. I went into a small shop, a really small, quaint little shop in a neighboring town. And it was nice, and I really was just browsing, and there was nothing there that caught my fancy. But I became small, like, oh, I can't walk in the store and just browse. They're going to think, who knows what they're going to think. So let me just buy this floor mat. I was sacrificing. I was playing smaller. Of course, I should be able to walk into any single store and browse and walk out, and I'm still the same person. I didn't
whether you purchase or not. Yep.
Whether I purchase or not, I didn't have to sacrifice the $22. And it wasn't until about a week later I was like, I was not empowered in that decision. I was sacrificial in that decision.
Right. And that you point out so many amazing things in that story, but the thing I want to talk about really quickly was really looking for those places where we play small.
Yes.
Any relationship that makes us feel small or where we feel that it's only safe if we play small, is a relationship that really needs to be evaluated, restructured, maybe moved along.
Yes.
To, but playing small is dangerous because it's negative sacrifice. It's not the giving, right? That when you give from a place of abundance, we have growth. But
right.
When we're giving and sacrificing to the point where it makes us play small, we don't honor ourselves. And when we don't honor ourselves, we attract other things that will not honor us.
That's right.
It's such, oh my gosh. Oh, another thing that came out of that story for me was when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. That business situation, you change your mindset from a victim mindset.
Mm-hmm.
What am I doing here and how am I attracting this, right? Then you found opportunities for growth and development.
And it changed my life. And it didn't just, to this day, I haven't been paid back, although that invoice goes out every single month and will continue to until it's paid. Right. But it changed my life. Just being willing to accept my own level of accountability, responsibility for what I'm choosing and allowing into my life. It would be easy to say, oh yeah, the narcissistic personality, or oh yeah, just a selfish individual. But the truth is, I played a part in the relationship.
Yes. And that's where the healing, that's where the transformation comes. That's where the brilliant life, the brilliant relationship kicks in, when we own it. And we say that, because that's the only place of creation, really, is to say, I own my part of this. Irregardless of what the other person or the other part of the situation, I own my part. And that's where our power and our strength can change. And where creation happens, and we say, I can see where, talking about the floor mat, me buying this floor mat did one great thing. It boosted the economy of that business, but it did a greater harm because I am now attracting energy that makes me play small.
That plays small.
Diminishes my contribution to the relationship. And we have to remember the most important word in a relationship is balance.
It is balance. Yeah. And it's really interesting. And we're going to go a little woo here, where you said, yeah, it benefited the economy of that business for me to purchase the floor mat. But the energy that I was purchasing it with was one of sacrifice and obligation.
Yep.
And money is a neutral exchange. It will only take on the energy of the giver and the receiver. And so that $22 took on the energy of sacrifice and obligation. And that's not a gift to keep on giving.
Right. Oh, everything we do is energy. Everything we do is energetic.
Yes.
So creating that space of balance, because we all do things at some point in time. It's called adulting, things that we don't want to do in a relationship. We all do, maybe stay out, or stay out a little bit later. I know today I had the wonderful opportunity to hang out with friends. I was so exhausted, but it was a love kind of thing. I should be resting, but I want to do this. So we do that in a relationship. But the balance is that my energy is there.
Right.
I feel in a positive space of being there, even though I'm not honoring the fact that I need to get some more rest and be sleeping. So we don't want to confuse that with because that wasn't playing small. That was me making a choice. But playing small is to say, I don't want to go, but I'm going to go because it's best for you if I go. When we do those things, and
yes, that would be practicing it, right? That's a habit. That's practicing. That's practicing putting yourself dead last.
Right. That your feelings don't matter. Your self-worth doesn't matter. And it does. And when you come to any union like that and you sacrifice that, I always tell people this, when you give and the energy around your giving, no matter whether it's your time, your money, your any other resource, when the energy surrounding that, just like we're talking about the $22 for the floor mat, when the energy around that is given from a space of, I'd rather not, even though the thing you're giving is good, it won't have a harvest that it should have.
No, you've added sorrow to it.
Yes, you've added sorrow to it. I love it. You've added sorrow to it. And so therefore it goes out and it produces more sorrow.
Yes.
So we've got what I hear saying too, balance and honesty.
Absolutely. And sometimes when in a relationship, and I think this comes right down to boundaries, sometimes it feels like, oh my God, that's going to be the hardest thing in the world to do. I might hurt someone's feelings. How can I possibly set up a boundary that honors myself? And once you do it and you realize it's okay, everything is safe.
The universe was waiting for you to set a boundary that honored yourself so the other person could be honored in their space, right?
Right.
Oh my
Right.
goodness.
Because when you're here, I'm just getting this. When you are playing small to appease others, what you're definitely not helping yourself, and you're not helping the other people too. Because what you're really saying is, I believe that you're already small, so I'm going to limit myself too.
Right. Exactly. When you show up as your authentic self, you give every relationship that you develop a growing chance, a fighting chance of being brilliant.
Absolutely.
You show up as your authentic self. And that means honoring your mistakes too. Oh my goodness. It doesn't mean that you're not going to honor your mistakes and saying, I missed the mark. It happens.
Yeah.
I missed the mark. Sometimes we miss the mark and we get so caught up in our shame, and this damages relationships. We get so caught up in our shame that we end up lying about missing the marks.
Right.
I don't know any way to damage and invalidate another person faster than lying to them.
That's right. And you know what? Sometimes lying simply just feels like, and this is going to sound odd to some people who are like, oh no, I never lie. Sometimes lying feels like the right thing to do, right? When someone's asking us, well, what's wrong?
Yeah.
I'm okay. You liar.
Right. You are right. Absolutely. So, where's this phrase? It's always right to do the right thing. It's always wrong to do the wrong thing. Right. And I think that to myself before I speak. Even though the thing that I'm going to say or want to do may be hurtful to someone, try to dress it up. Make sure it's the truth. Because if you lie, you'll be lied to.
That's you only attract what you put out, right?
For the right or wrong reasons. Who cares? When you get in that space in your relationship, either whether it's business or personal, you want the truth.
Absolutely. And here's the other thing. Even if the truth is something that your internal dialogue is saying, your story is saying, oh gosh, they're not going to want to hear this. That all of that conflict is internal to you. Because I would say for the most part, the listening audience, and I certainly know you, Dr. Dravon, and I would like to think me, we're gracious individuals. We are not going to just come out of our mouth and say something intentionally in a way to hurt people. We pepper our conversations with love.
Yeah. And everything. I did a talk on this a few years ago. Do the hardest things first and do them with love. Yes. And do them with love, right? So we do have to say hard things, right? Some relationships are going to dissolve, right? So that they can make room for something else. You can still make that transition with love. Wishing the best for the individual and one the best for yourself.
Absolutely.
Right? You still do those things with love. Everything in love. It makes all of the difference. And that takes a lot of weight off of yourself too. You think, and to start off with that, sometimes I start off with difficult things saying, I'm saying, please hear my heart when I say this. It's a difficult thing for me to say.
Yeah.
Right. And being transparent, transparent, right? When we're talking about relationships, moving from where you are to where you want to be, there is vulnerability in that. And it has to be.
And that when I was working in the corporate world and would have to have what I considered to be a difficult conversation, I would start saying that I need to have a difficult conversation, and I need you to understand it may be difficult for you to hear, and it is equally difficult for me to deliver. And that just kind of, okay. And it never was as difficult to hear or deliver as I had first imagined it was going to be.
Right. Because you set the stage. And I think that's that communication 101, because a lot of the things that make a relationship not as brilliant as it could be is our communication style. Right? It's our communication style. And I'm guilty of this. And I want to, maybe there are people out there who are also guilty of this. I am guilty of taking a situation that happens today and extrapolating it to every aspect of my life. So for instance, and I have to remind myself that in order to be resilient in all things, keep this compartmentalized with this. Don't let it grow like a weed, whatever this is, making, oh my gosh, because this happened, this is going to happen, this, that kind of futuristic.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. I can predict the future with 100% accuracy.
Right. Right, exactly. It is all going to be bad because of this one bad thing that happened. You see, because this bad thing that happened here, it's going to have a ripple effect. Right. I caution people to not do that. Take control of your mind in that way. And if you do that, when I have a little trick for myself, when I do start doing that, I start playing the what ifs on the negatives. I force myself to say what ifs with a smile. Okay, well, what if, oh my gosh, what if that happened and this happens, right? And my whole energy changes. That little knot that sits at the top of my stomach, or right in the pit of my stomach, that starts to dissolve. Yeah. Right? Just by changing the energy at which you ask those questions. But for relationship to be brilliant, you want to avoid those pitfalls of taking one disappointment and extrapolating it to every aspect of the relationship, right?
Yes, yes. Yeah. And the tactic that you just mentioned is one that Dale Carnegie talks about in his Golden Rules book. Yeah, count the cost. What's the absolute worst thing that could possibly happen? And I love what you added. Say it with a smile. The more you say it, and particularly, I will tell my clients, tap as you're saying it.
Oh, yes. Tap.
Oh. In this rabbit hole of, and the sky is falling. It all immediately starts to sound ridiculous, and you're able to put it in perspective. Like, well, what is the probability of this affecting every single area of my life?
Right. And it's so funny because right before I got on this show with you, I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and we were talking about relationships. And we said, what is the worst that would happen? In preparation for the show, I always ask the questions. I said, what is the worst that would happen if your relationship ended? What was your biggest fear? And she listed two, maybe three. I can remember two of them. One was that she'd never get married again.
Okay.
Right. And not only that she would not get married again, but that she'd never go into a relationship again. She'd just be alone. So we talked about that. And the other one was that she'd be judged as a failure, right? As a failure. And I said, so if that's the worst two things that will happen, I wish I was wise enough to say tap. I didn't think about tapping. So that is excellent, because as I just hit that spot when you were saying that, the woo side starts happening.
Yes.
Changing, right? So that's awesome. But if you look at that and say, okay, the worst thing that would happen is I'll never date again. Talking about transforming relationships. Well, I'll be such an expert on me because of all the time that I spend on me.
Right.
So there's a positive in that. Now, what's the likelihood that you'll never date again?
0. The likelihood that you will never date again when you end a relationship, if dating is what you want to do, is 0. And let me tell you why it's 0 for anyone who's interested. Because you can always, 100% date yourself.
I love it.
Get to know yourself. Take yourself out, get dressed up, and do whatever it is that you want to do. Date yourself. You will always have a date found in you.
Yes, and get comfortable with you. Get comfortable with giving your best to you first. Don't save that dress. Don't save the beautiful shoes. Wear them now for you. Spend a little extra time on you. And even though it's just you, go out and do whatever you're going to do in style that represents how you feel about yourself. You will always have a date.
Yeah, and even the languaging. I want to challenge the languaging. Even if we're saying, even though it's just you. No, even though it's you. Even though it's you.
Right, drop the jest. Right?
Yes. Who better than you? Who better than you? And the more comfortable and the more excited you become about taking yourself out and treating yourself to something special, because that's what you do, the more other people are going to want to get to know you. The more other people are going to want to date you. They're going to want some of that. Trust and believe. They're going to want some of that.
And just as you said, because it's energy. Because you're putting out energy around you that is an attractor pattern. You're attracting more of what you're putting out. So, and her other thing was that people would judge her. Now, this is what we got to know. We're talking about building brilliant relationships.
Yeah.
Is that people are entitled to make opinions.
Yeah.
That's what we do. We look at situations and we critique them, right or wrong.
We judge
right?
ourselves.
Right. And so that is
we judge. It's what we do.
Right. And you're not responsible. You're not responsible for the opinions of others.
No, it's actually none of your business.
Oh, I love that. It's none of your business what somebody else is thinking about you. It really isn't, because it'll drive you crazy. You put 10 people in the room, and all 10 of them have a different version of what they think you are.
Right.
And the only version that really matters is the version that you tell your story, the story you tell about yourself.
That's
and
right.
about your relationship.
Absolutely.
That's the story that matters.
Absolutely. I cannot believe that we've been talking about this. Well, I can believe it because it is a brilliant subject, the brilliant life, and talking about relationships. Is there anything else you wanted to share on relationships and how we can continue to cultivate this brilliant life when it comes
to I would really like to recap, because I know we went every place, because this is a big topic. It's an exciting topic, because going from where you are to where you want to be, if you're in a great relationship and you want to just keep it great, embrace change early on.
Yes.
Notice small things about yourself, small things about the person or the situation. Notice when it starts to change, and change with it.
Yes.
It doesn't mean you have to change in the same way, but change with it. Be part of the evolution of change in your relationship. And 2, see yourself. Be honest with what you see. No shame, no guilt, no condemnation. All of us make mistakes in relationships, outside of relationships. We make mistakes. Go ahead and forgive yourself early on. Ask for forgiveness. If it's granted, pick it up and take it, make it yours. If it's not granted, if forgiveness is not granted, still accept that you have forgiven yourself. Accept that. Right? So those 2 points are so essential to me in relationship. And remember, balance, balance, balance. I love your example about the sacrificial giving till it hurts.
Practicing sacrifice. It's not anything that is cracked up to be.
Don't give from a pain body, in the words of Eckhart Tolle, right? Don't have this pain body that you're activating as part of your relationship. No.
Right. Because what you practice is what you're getting really good at.
Give from your overflow and fill up constantly. Keep filling yourself up. That means self-awareness, right? Absolutely. Reading, journal. I love journaling. I'm not a consistent journaler, because by the time I lie down, I'm so exhausted. But I do like to journal, get in that space and write down what I'm feeling, where, why, what, when, where, and how.
Yeah, I love journaling too. I have like 7 active journals that I journal in daily.
Wow.
I have my future self journal. I have my brag book. I have my gratitude journaling. I have my business journal. Like, I just journal.
Oh, that's good. You have clarity. You have clarity. A lot of clarity because of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Journaling does that for you. It gives you that clarity. And if you guys listen to any of my tapes in my training series, I always talk about how do you create. When you take your idea from a non-physical world in your head and reduce it to paper, that is creation right there. That is so powerful. You've taken something from a non-physical world in your mind and you put it on paper in this physical world. That is creation, and that creative energy is so powerful. Do that with your relationship. Write down where you are and where you want to be.
Yeah.
In every relationship, whether it's with another person or circumstance, start the creative process by taking it from your mind and putting it on paper. Oh, I'm going to do that today.
That's right. Yes, absolutely. You know, it's interesting because this year for 2019, every time I journal, I'm like, this is enchantment journaling. And I don't know where I came up with the term, but it just resonates. Like everything that I'm writing is because I say it is.
And you get that feeling in the very beginning.
Yes.
Because it's the feeling of truth. Before it actually materializes to the eye, you're already feeling it. So you know that it's coming. And we can generate that feeling from staying in balanced relationships. I cannot emphasize balance enough. Balance is so important. You've got to have give and take. You've got to have give and take. And if whatever situation you're in doesn't provide that balance, it's time to readjust, or it may be time to move on.
And that's okay.
And that's okay.
And that's okay. There's more. There's so much more out
They
there.
call that with the law of attrition, I think. That's the law of attrition. Means that it's constant flow. Things and situations are flowing out of your life as things and situations are flowing into your life. So it's a law of attrition.
Yeah, that's a flowing river as opposed to a swamp. Dr. Dravon, how can listeners follow you?
You can follow me on my Instagram at hashtag Everyday Peace, and on Facebook, hashtag Everyday Peace. On my show, I have a radio program, if you don't already know that, Mondays, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Everyday Peace with Dr. Dravon James. Please, we have some exciting guests in there, exciting topics, all geared to how to develop a life of peace. Nothing missing, nothing broken, wholeness, completeness, totality. We all want that feeling of safety, and relationships play a big part in that. And then, of course, there's my website, www.drdravonjames.
Yes, awesome. And I can be reached at Keisha on Facebook at Keisha Dixon, the Tapping Queen. Check out my page there, and my website is www.KeishaDixon, Dr. Dravon. The name of the show, as you well know, is What About Me? And I always ask my guests to share 5 things that make them phenomenal. But I think for this series, I'm going to switch it up a little bit. Tell our listeners 3 to 5 ways you are living the brilliant life.
3 to 5 ways that I'm living the brilliant life. I got to tell you, way number 1 doesn't sound like fun, but it helps me live the brilliant life is discipline.
Yes.
Discipline. My yes is my yes and my no is my no. Right? Discipline. Number 2, doesn't sound like fun, but it is essential to living a brilliant life, is follow through. Follow through. And Dravon, if you said you were going to do it, you're disciplined, you did it, but follow through and do that next activity. Do that next activity. And then number 3 is my ability to forgive everything, starting with me every day.
Yes.
If I die daily, absolutely. The old Dravon or 5 minutes ago, and I try, this is going to be number 4.
Yeah.
Apologize quickly.
Yes.
Apologize quickly. Don't sit and stew in that stuff. Anybody can be wrong. Yes, even you can be wrong. Even you can be wrong. And here it is. I may be absolutely right. But in my rightness, I made you feel wrong. I'm apologizing for that. Because I don't want to be right to the place where I make you feel small. We talked about that. Right? I don't want to engage in smallness. And then I think this is where number 5, my final one, is I seek my internal peace every day. I keep going and going and going until I get to that space, that sweet spot where this is whole and complete. I'm safe. Practicing tapping, meditation, breathing, the things that I need to do for my totality, for the real me, the inside me.
Absolutely. That's a brilliant list for a brilliant life. And honestly, they all sounded quite fun because they were all self-honoring, which is amazing for me. Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Dravon James. As usual, it's such a pleasure to have you on What About Me? And thank you to our sponsor, Transformed Credit. If you're in need of rapid credit repair with no auto enrollment, you only pay as we delete. Text 44222 and type in Transformed Credit. It's time to raise your credit score quickly. And to my dear listeners, thank you for listening to this week's broadcast of What About Me? It's always my desire and intention for you to receive the clarity and the framework for a successful week. Join us every Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right here at WJMSradio.com as we continue to shine the light of consciousness on those things that are holding you back from living the life of your dreams, that brilliant life. I'm Keisha Dixon, the Tapping Queen, transformational wealth coach, creator of the Monetize Your Mind Success System and the Visibility Vixen Success System. I guide women to shatter their internal glass ceiling as they increase their income doing what they love. Have a great week, everyone.